This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Every sip of Coca-Cola brings you closer to the excitement of the FIFA World Cup 26. Because nothing compares to the joy. So grab a Coke and drink in the FIFA World Cup 26. No purchase necessary. 13 plus in 50 U.S. states and D.C. with a web-enabled device. Ends March 1st with 8 entry periods. Rules at cokeurl.com/soccer rules.
Hello and welcome to Fintech Insider Insights by 11FS. I'm your host, David Brear, Group CEO of 11FS, and today I'm coming to you live from the FCA Supercharged Sandbox Showcase. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Apparently it's called Project Shh. Is that okay, I can see why, yeah. It is a great pleasure to be on stage concluding this amazing 2-day showcase of the first AI sandbox from the FCA, where the participating companies have been showcasing their products and learnings. And what we want to do today is bring to life what that means. We want to lift the lid on the AI sandbox, the first of its kind by the UK regulator, and take a step back and look at why it exists in the first place, the industry leading the processes, partnerships that have made it possible, and then go into some of the important things around what has been tested and making sure that that's in a safe and secure environment as well. We're going to be joined by representatives of the FCA, their sandbox partners, NayaOne, and also Napier AI, a participating company, to try and get the inside scoop on what it's actually like to be in the sandbox. And then at the end, an audience, you are going to get to ask questions. So it probably will go out on the podcast. So if you want to ask a question, that'll go out around the world in front of the regulator. Think really carefully about what you ask would be my advice. But does that sound good? Yeah? All right, well then let's get started. To kick things off, please welcome to the show my first guest, Matt Lowe, who is the Innovation Manager at the FCA. Give him a round of applause. How's it going?
All right.
Does this feel like the sort of relaxing end after 2 days of high energy effort?
Relaxing end.
Being on stage. Yeah.
Being on stage and on a podcast, yeah, no pressure, no stress at all. No, I'm really glad we're kind of come to the end of it. But absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of work that's gone on in the team to get this to happen. And I think I've seen the majority of the showcases and they've been amazing. So really happy.
Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting us along. But talk us a little bit about what's been happening over the last couple of days then. Because like I say, it's been I saw the agenda, it's been non-stop. Really, both for everybody on stage and off stage, it's been pretty high intensity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The idea behind the last 2 days is really to surface all the solutions that have come through the Supercharged Sandbox. So the idea is that you've got, all this great work that's been happening. Mm-hmm. We want to make sure that the teams who have been doing that work, they have a platform where they can showcase their work to a bigger audience, to show what they've done, to augment some of that work and make sure it's surfaced in, at least at the FCA, but also to a broader audience outside of that.
And talk to us a little bit more about the Supercharged Sandbox then. For everybody in the audience live now, you obviously know about it. You've been listening about it for the last 48 hours. But for everybody listening on the podcast, what is it? Why does it matter? What's the objectives?
Well, it's a sandbox. And it's been supercharged.
Well, that concludes this podcast.
Yeah. So, Well, there is a bit of a story here, I can tell. Basically, we started with our digital sandbox concepts around about the same time as COVID. We, at the FCA, have been working in innovation for quite a long time now. And part of what we have been doing is how do we start to get some of that early stage innovation to happen? My team was responsible for the Tech Sprint program initially, which is our regulatory hackathon program. So this is pretty much like FCA's got a problem they want to solve. They want to kind of get some of that innovation happening in that space. And that really spawned out of our RegTech space, so our RegTech world, which is regulatory technology. So we'd be looking at things like, AML, fraud detection, some of those solutions where we want to make a bit of a difference and see how we can surface those and light the fire of innovation effectively. Anyway, so that tech sprint program was happening at the same time. My job at the time was I was a technical specialist. So my role was to go, okay, I need to get an environment, I need to find data, I need to find this space for people to come in and build and test for 2 to 3 days. Sounds like fun, right? But the problem is I would do that for 2 to 3 days. People come in, code, test, build, they have proof of concepts that they've done, they've worked really hard for those 2 or 3 days. And then on the day 4, I would decommission everything. So they would lose access to their data, they'd lose access to their code. They'd still have the relationships that they'd build over that period of time, but they then would struggle to continue the development. So the idea of the digital sandbox came about by saying, okay, well, what if we had that space where they could build, code, test, and they can do that and they can continue to do that. So if they have a hackathon, we could actually continue that conversation beyond it. And that's where we started to bring in like the concept of having it always there, data sets that we would either curate ourselves, so synthetic data or other data sets, and bring them into the platform, and then see how they could carry on from that conversation. Now, as a result, we would carry out these tech sprints and we would start to build out a cache of data sets. You'd start to have more people coming in and we'd start building community, right? So why don't we just make that always open? So let people come in, code, test, and do that at any point in time. You can start being a little bit more use case agnostic, and then you can start actually seeing some of these solutions get developed outside of the realms of a tech sprint program. So that's kind of like the story of the digital sandbox, and then obviously the AI world went crazy.
Yeah. Just sticking on what you just said there. I mean, it's not physical, as in you're not giving somebody a laptop and they're walking away with a laptop, but that step is huge. I know you want it to move on, and it feels like a small thing outside of a regulatory organisation to make something like that happen, but within is huge, right? Because as you say, the excitement or the progress that you can make when you've got all of the right triangulation of pieces, whether it's, like you say, access to compute, or whether it's data or expertise, whatever. But being able to take that away with you, it sort of continues that journey in a much more compelling way, doesn't it? So, because it feels often like great seeds are grown, aren't they, in these events? But actually, being able to continue that momentum is monumental.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's one of the things that we see a lot. It's yes, you can have those coding environments, and you have those conversations, and then you start seeing the partnerships being formed by people who are actually being involved.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact there's some people in the audience that were here that my very first tech sprint, and they've been a common thread throughout, and I think almost been at every single one. Amazing. So it's not just about the data and the technology side of it. It's like, okay, the coalition of the willing who are going to carry on these things and bring them forwards, because it really takes the human element to bring it to life.
Definitely. Well, I mean, you were sort of moving on to the AI side of things, and obviously, I mean, it seems like a sort of redundant question to ask, so why AI with all the headlines and all of the momentum and the changes, but it feels like actually with all of that excitement and opportunity is inherently changes that are required in the way in which it is regulated or thought about even. So I guess that answers the question, right? But having seen some of the presentations and having seen the broadness of what's come now into this, are you amazed by that breadth of opportunities, or every presentation seems to be dramatically different?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is another thing I think is a key feature of how we've differentiated what we've done in the digital sandbox world with what we're doing with Supercharged Sandbox. Very much AI focused, but we're being very much use case agnostic and also technology agnostic, apart from it's AI, right? But there's lots of different types of AI.
Sure.
So part of the process of actually going through, okay, we've got all these people that apply and they want to actually come in and they want to build and test, we need to make sure we're filtering, all the good solutions through and taking them on that journey. And to give you a bit of a flavour for how many people have come through that journey, or firms, we've had 132 applications. We could only accept around about 20. So we're in a really unique position where we can choose 20 of the best.
Yeah.
And that's 20 of the best propositions, right? But then they've got to go and they've got to do the building and the testing, and they've got to bring that to life. So they're getting that support as they're going through it. And by the time they get to here, they're in a really good space because they've had that mentorship all the way through. They've had us working with them. We're learning as a result. We're working with other partners who can augment the technical elements. And by the time they get to showcase, all of the ones I've seen have been really slick. We give them feedback on, what does good look like? How do you present it? How do you sell yourself in the 7 minutes that you've been given? So getting it to this day, it's all the work that's gone behind it gets here. And that's why you have such a good quality of multiple use cases that cover multiple things, using some technologies that they probably haven't even considered and maybe have tweaked it or changed their journey. And then getting to showcase that to, us in the audience and seeing some of the fantastic work they've done.
Amazing. So it was open to anybody to apply. And I mean, the narrowing down of that, long list to the short list must have been a hell of a task as well.
Absolutely. I mean, my mum or dad could apply, really, if they wanted to. So, but I doubt they would get very far.
Yeah. Are they in the audience? Did they win? Or?
Oh, geez, I would have had to fly all the way from Australia. So that'd be a nice surprise. I mean, to give you a bit of a flavour, it had to go almost through a 3-stage process. There was an initial filter, which is a check to see how relevant is the application. Does it look like they've given it much thought? We saw a lot of AI used to complete an application. We can sense that, by the way. And then
that's somewhat meta, though, isn't it? It's like the AI itself applies to be part of the sandbox.
How do you know that hasn't taken over already, huh? And then you go through another sort of filter where we take it through the FCA lens and understand the use case a little bit more. Is it relevant? And then we go through a technical assessment, and that's where we go, okay, can we support them in some way, whether that's data, technology, does it make sense? Is it going to take up too much GPU? Because we saw some really great ideas, but they would have been really costly to put through the sandbox. Yeah,
you're sort of draining the power grid of London by just putting it through these things. I know we had Colin on the podcast recently, and like you say, the amazing success of the things that the FCA has done previously, and actually I sort of said this feels a little bit like the second Tough album, like the breakout album with all the sandboxes was so wildly successful, and you saw that ripple across the whole world of people emulating what was happening. It feels like being at the forefront of this type of innovation, it feels very much you guys, and that's an amazing thing to see. But have you been surprised at the success of it? Because I know he's in the crowd somewhere, but I was met at the door today by somebody who was raving about the fact that the event had gone really well, and the support the business had got was awesome, and everything that went with it. So that must make you feel really proud, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody wants to be 5th or 6th. Everybody wants to be number 1, right?
Yeah, and it's hard to stay at number 1 as well, right? That's the thing. Luckily we've got really great sponsorship from our senior leaders as well, where they can support us and make sure that we can maintain that. But it does take a lot of us having to think about, okay, what's the next thing?
Yeah.
And I'm always hearing, hey, that was great. What's the next thing?
Sure.
And so we're constantly iterating our approach and how we do things.
Keep setting high expectations, though. It's we'll start talking about that 3rd album really soon, then.
Yeah. We'll be like you too. One day we'll release it in a pod, in a new Apple release, and nobody will want to listen to it. But they had some good albums to begin with.
That's true. There's at least 6 or 7 great absolute bangers in there, isn't there?
Yeah,
so you'll be fine. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, a big part of this one as well, like you say, that it's not just you guys. It's a big partnership piece. I mean, why have they been so important to these types of initiatives?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we need to be aware there's a regulator. We do have certain limitations, whether that's capability or technology. So the partnerships are really important because we can bring our convening power and our ideas, but we do need to lean into the likes of NVIDIA if we want to get access to the GPU space, and we want to make sure we're getting access to maybe the AI enterprise suite. Same with AWS. How do we get access to some of that compute, and how do we bring that to life and some of their tooling? And then obviously NayaOne, who you'll be talking to in a minute, but their engineering capabilities that they bring to the Supercharged Sandbox is really important as well. And they've done a lot of work individually with each firm to make sure that they've got the right tech stack, and they're dealing with multiple requirements. And you can imagine doing that over 20 teams is quite a lot, and they've also got to think about their data requirements. So, it used to be called the highly leveraged model, right? Then we would say, yeah, we're a pretty small team, but we need to leverage those partnerships to make sure that we can bring some of those things to life.
Yeah. I mean, doing it in such a real sense in this one it does feel like it's such an extra step, though. As you say, it's, facilitation towards, standards is one thing, but then really bringing partners together and setting those standards at that bar is another. But rather than talk about your partners, maybe we'll bring one of them onto the stage to talk to us a little bit more. So welcome to the stage, Ollie Platt, who is the Head of Client Solutions at NayaOne. Give him a round of applause. How's it going, mate? You all right?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Busy couple of days by the sound of things, huh?
Yeah, well, no, the last couple of days are really rather easy for us now. All the teams have done the hard work, so we get to sit back and look at the excellent results now.
Is there any of the ideas where great engineer stands back and goes, God, that's going to be difficult, there must have been a few of those moments during this process, huh?
Yeah, so as in, I can't lie, it's absolutely not me, right? We've got an awesome team of engineers.
No, just take all the credit. Do it.
Yeah. Sorry, let me rephrase.
I scoped everyone myself, and no, I'm joking.
No, all me. No, not at all. So we've obviously got this awesome team of engineers and people who've been working on this tirelessly with the FCA's teams, really very much hand in glove throughout. So honestly, the teams who have taken part have been really collaborative as well. So it kind of starts to come together really quite well as it all starts to piece together.
Nice. And you guys are infrastructure partner for all of the things that have been happening. What does that mean in practice?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, we can go into the world of tech really quite easy. We can go, look, we've got a great tech stack, and bring AI in is like, it's a really interesting part, and we spend time doing AI or quantum or whatever, digital assets, whatever that might be. But I think Matt is almost talking to it probably some of the best. It's really what a lot of the work has ultimately been is kind of partnership and collaboration, right? So whether it's the FCA, whether it's AWS, NVIDIA, all of that kind of starting to come together is really where a lot of the exciting parts start to happen. Because I remember kind of sitting in a meeting room not far from where we're sat now, probably about a year ago with Matt and team, and going, look, so we're going to do this. Sounds good. Sounds like we've got a plan. And we go, Jessica, I'm seeing on the left going up. Right, she's going to announce it on this day, so it better make sure we're all ready and buttoned up. We go, awesome. But then you've kind of got this kind of fundamental bit where you go, the FCA has this awesome ability to convene and accelerate. So you've got to ultimately be leveraging that. And the really, I think, interesting part is, and I sit in a really fortunate position of going, we work across a lot of regulators, central banks, even commercial banks. And you've got someone like the FCA who sets themselves, as you guys were talking about, this really, really high bar constantly. But then something like this, I think the intent that the FCA genuinely sets forward and goes, we're going to do this, and it's going to deliver real value into the ecosystem, it's really cool every time.
Yeah. Well, you've worked across both the digital sandbox and now, has there been any major differences between the two from I guess on the execution side, a quite dramatic one, but has it felt different in this regard?
Yeah, I think this one, like looking at the results and the outputs the team have pulled together here, even if you go back a couple of tech sprints, and we're not talking long ago here, we're talking a year and they've gone, we're bringing in LLMs. And I think it was even Colin, people were laughing about yesterday. So Colin Payne, who heads up a lot of the innovation here at the FCA, was a participant, and he brought in an LLM for the first time, and everyone was going, wow, that was a cool bot that could talk to people. And then we're sat here post all these presentations that the 20 plus firms have done. And the jump in a year is somewhat terrifying. You go, wow, agents, and these agents have been doing things that probably a year ago we conceptually thought could be a thing, but no one was seriously doing them. And firms are doing them. Yeah. And that's where it gets really cool.
That is amazing, isn't it? Like you say, the stuff a year ago looks like a toy now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And those advancements are amazing, aren't they? That's quite an amazing thing for what the impact could be on the industry, but I guess quite a scary one as well, given the pace of that change. It's always been through conversations with you guys. It's always been an interesting conversation of like the balance between being on the absolute edge of innovation and understanding it and digesting it and regulating it effectively. But I guess that sort of answers the question really around, why does AI need to be in a sandbox, right? It's so changing and so developing that actually experimenting in a safe environment seems like the only explainable way of doing it, really.
And I think you run into so many roadblocks as you're going as well, right? So if you ask one of the firms earlier, we hit like 20 roadblocks as we're going along. I think if you're not enabling a space for things to go wrong, so for the participants to learn, whether they are large vendors learning, whether that's large banks who are learning, whether it's actually the regulator who's actually taking some of these insights as early as possible to go, how does this need to inform policy? How does this need to inform the approach that we're going to take? What outcomes are we going to end up seeing, and what do we need to be cognizant of? That having that sandbox, having that early insight into what it is, it kind of comes down to learning and accelerating that journey.
Yeah. Must be surprising to you as well, the pace of change in the space. And I mean, even from the start of it to the end of it, the developments are pretty amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that Ollie's probably not mentioning because he's being modest about it, but at the very beginning of the cohort, it was almost like the firms were a little bit like shy on asking for stuff. And it was like, no, ask for more. And then they would go and engineer it. So even like seeing the relationships between how we're working with the firms and how they're working with Ollie, like knowing that they've actually got a bit more of an open field here to play in, that helps accelerate the development. And so that's why I think you see that happening a lot quicker as well.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'd rather it that way than like elaborate riders at the beginning, blue M&Ms and whatnot. But I guess as that development and that partnership has gone on, that must be, again, the more you work collaboratively, the better the outcomes are going to be, right?
Yeah, so like I remember, again, another conversation with Matt, but we basically went, those first couple of weeks, we're like, let's just get all the weird and wonderful ideas out of these participants that we possibly can. Like, let's just go and ask, like, is there something weird you would like? If the answer is yes, come and talk to us, come and talk to the FCA, and let's see what we can do. Like, push the boundaries as far as you possibly can in the next few months, because that's where we want to be.
I feel like asking who asked the weirdest question at this point, but like, what was the weirdest like request then? Was it some weird quirk of infrastructure, or was it the scale of resources required, or
did you have a weirdest one?
The weirdest one you're safest and allowed to say, go out on a podcast.
No, that's what I'm thinking really hard about, David.
There's probably a load you're not allowed to say, which I feel like I put you on the spot on that one. But
no, I think really the really cool part was initially we went, how far can we push this? Like, how much compute do we give? Do we trust that there's not going to be a crazy data scientist who says, like you said, let's drain London's power grid. Let's see how far we can go.
Amazing use case, but not one you were going for. I mean.
Yeah, look, I think the Daily Mail might have enjoyed that one a bit too much. But I think it was an interesting scenario when we went, right, what are the weird and wonderful? And because a large amount of trust had been built between the FCA, us, the participants, AWS, NVIDIA, opening things up and going, right, let's continue to act in this secure, safe way at speed, but let's just do more. That was really what was exciting. And that's why it's hard to say what was crazy, because everyone works so collaboratively.
Sure. Good. All right. Well, we've talked about, why, we've talked about how it's been set up, but maybe if we bring somebody on who's actually been a part of it, a participant in the thing, and ask her what the craziest thing she asked for potentially. But please welcome to the stage Janet Bastiman, who is the Chief Data Scientist at Napier AI. Give her a round of applause. Hello there, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm not going to start with what was the weirdest thing you asked for. That would be really rude and cruel on you in front of it. But give it a think. I'm not asking it last. But tell us a little bit more about Napier AI.
Yeah, so Napier AI, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. We're a regulatory technology firm, and we provide compliance software to all types of financial institutions worldwide. So all next-gen technology underpinned with AI throughout.
Amazing. I mean, 10 years of doing it as well. I mean, there's so many people sort of a flurry of excitement in the last sort of 24 months, but having been doing it for 10 years, you've seen such advancements, such changes, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the firm was first founded, it was pretty much out of that aspect of compliance can be difficult. It takes a long time to establish rules. So having a really easy rules builder and putting that back into the hands of the compliance officers was the ethos. And then over time we spread out. We've had some really cool AI in the product. When I joined 5.5 years ago, we started pushing out that, and we've been iterating on that ever since, adding crazy ideas in as and when they make sense to do so.
Yeah, and as those advancements in technology, I guess the ideas have got bigger. 10 years ago, it all sounds like sci-fi fantasy, and 10 years later, it's all possible, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those weird things in AI that you always kind of overestimate where you'll be in the long term, but kind of underestimate where you'll be in the short term. And I think a lot of us have been really surprised by how quickly things have gone. I do remember in a previous role saying, it's like, give it time, and if you want to create an image, you'll just type it in and you'll get an image back. And I remember saying that at a conference and seeing a load of marketing people just go, yeah, right. And that's where we are now. So I think all those wonderful things that we can imagine, they're starting to make sense. And, there's still the guardrails and lots of great things that we need to put in place, but there's so much power and adaptability there that it's really going to make our job of financial crime compliance easier. And for me personally, that's a huge motivator is, how can we detect and prevent all of the financial crime that's out there.
Much more exciting to explain to your friends and family what you do for a job as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
20 years ago, I worked in financial services. Now it's fintech. It sounds sexy, right? So ignore these two. Pretend they're not there, okay? How's it been? How's the experience of being in the sandbox?
It's been great. We've had learnings. I think there's quite a few things that I think if I went back to when we applied, that I'd probably put in place in terms of what we needed to get done up front. And, particularly sort of data, because we thought, okay, well, we've got this idea, let's apply, and then if we succeed, we can go to customers, ask for data, maybe create our own. So when we started, we were a little bit on the back foot there, and then we did actually break the sandbox by putting too much data in the wrong place. It's just a question of learning sort of where things went. And
does it reply email? Thanks for that. And
it was,
to be honest, this is the first time I've heard of it. I should have broke my sandbox.
Because it was one of those things that we're used to developing locally, and we've got all our own resources, and then suddenly you're presented with an environment and it's like, click here to launch something, this is how you transfer files. So we did.
Yeah.
And then things wouldn't launch, and we had to work out why, and then we got more provision, we got the wonderful GPUs. I mean, I'm loving the fact that I can go in, I push a button, and then I've got a terminal up, and it's like, great, I can transfer as much data as I want via an AWS bucket and transfer files locally, and I can run things and I can go away and come back. And that's just been amazing, really able to do, I'd say for those that were in my presentation, it's just some quite esoteric ideas where it comes to how do we detect different financial crime typologies. So that has just been tremendous, and it's not something we'd have been able to do without the sandbox, just because, I'd say, it's a scale-up company. It's been going 10 years. We have a lot of customers. We have a lot of demands on our time. And our internal resources are allocated. I mean, it's my job to allocate them to quite well in advance in terms of what our roadmap is and what we're doing. So trying to think ahead as to what's going to go in the roadmap 6 to 12 months down the line and what research we need to do now, the sandbox has just been an absolute catalyst for that.
Yeah, I imagine everybody internally must have really liked that as well, because it's all the really scary, fun ideas you put down on the roadmap. You were like, we're going to get to do those things now. So the team must have really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, particularly my team, sort of all the data scientists, it's like we've got this wonderful resource, and it's like, are there any other crazy ideas that fall under this umbrella that we can do at the same time? And then sort of the wider company, everyone I've spoken to is like, oh, that's really cool. When can we talk about it? And it's like, when we've got some results.
Soon.
Soon.
Yeah.
Soon. When will then be now? Soon. So, yeah, it's just been really good and really positive to be involved in.
Amazing. What's the experience of standing up on stage in front of everybody? 7 minutes is not a lot to conveying insanely complex topics. You've got to be pretty succinct, right?
Yes, I think both myself and Johnny, who presented with me, we'd have loved to have had an hour keynote to go through it at the depth. And if this was an academic conference, then we'd have pushed for that. But to get that down to who we are, problem statement, and the 2 projects that we did, because we didn't just do one, we did 2 parallel things, and then where we're going next, and keep that like 30 seconds per slide was a challenge, but careful rehearsal and knowing your stuff inside out, you can get it done.
Yeah, like power talking. Yeah, I often get told on the podcast people listen to me at half speed because I speak too quickly. But in this environment, that would be an advantage, wouldn't it? So
absolutely.
So was your sort of expectations really high going into it? I guess has the expectations been met, or have they sort of surpassed? Or what was your wildest dreams of how this would run?
I think, yeah, they were high going in, and I think we've met them, but we're at a different peak. So we went to climb one mountain, and I think, and we're not the only participant who said this, but we tried some things up front that just didn't quite work. And as we were going through trying these out, which again, we needed the resource to play around with and make sure that we could do it with enough data to prove the concept. And then we switched our direction and came to different approaches. So we got where we wanted to be, but via a different route.
Yeah. So it's not, these things are hard work, right?
Yeah.
You put work in, you put the effort in to get to a result. But, the point you made of we tried some stuff and it didn't work, like that's why this exists, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's science as well. As let's say I'm a data scientist. The scientific approach is you make a hypothesis, you try stuff out, you test it, it fails, you try something else out, and you keep iterating on that. So that was a really important part of it. And having that outside of the commercial expectation of this has to be delivered to client in 2 weeks is really useful.
Yeah. So I guess, for everybody, this is the end of the 2 days, it's sort of, and actually at the end of this period, right? What's the big learnings here other than don't let Janet pull down your infrastructure?
Yeah, that's definitely one I'm going to have to put on the list to learn.
There's going to be a note later.
Yeah. We'll
Drop to you in it.
No, I think the lessons learned for us is I think we need to probably have a bit more time, to be honest. I don't know how you feel, Janet, like whether the 3-month period was long enough or whether we needed to extend that a little bit.
That's a really tricky one, because 3 months it's a nice chunk of time. I think 3 months going over the Christmas break, probably less so, because we did lose a lot of time with that. But just if it's too long, then you run the risk of not putting enough effort towards it. Whereas 3 months, it's like, no, we've got to do this. We've got these weekly check-ins, and we've got to show progress each week. Whereas I think had it been 4 to 6 months, we might not have been as tight on it.
Yeah.
So I think my only thing was like just losing those couple of weeks over Christmas was a bit painful.
Absolutely.
So cancel Christmas next year.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
That's right. I've got a hotline to Santa.
Any other learnings? What were you? I'm making a big presumption here that you're going to do this again, or like that this would be something you'd want to continue. Because I guess from your perspective, is the outcome been what you wanted it to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the outcome has been fantastic. Like seeing the teams present, I said, at such a high quality. Now the journey for them, like we're keeping the sandbox open for a little bit longer, like for another month, so they can continue that development that I was talking about before, and not just cutting it straight off. So seeing what they do next is the important thing for us.
Yep.
Is now watching those firms and seeing how they go on to develop further and seeing some of these things come to life. And I'm not silly enough to sit back and say they're all going to succeed, but to see a good majority of them go out to market and see them being productionized and being used elsewhere, that's a huge success for me. Or even just like being handed off into some of our other innovation services. Yeah. Because we're still like at the early stage innovation space, right? It's now you've developed a product. Now it's probably time to go to Reg Sandbox because you're starting to test with real consumers. So you're continuing the journey within the FCA life cycle, but also outside of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that life cycle, having something to get to viability and having something to get to, something that will work in production with real data and take it further. I mean, are there ideas that have come out of this that you think you'll take, into the real world, as it were?
Oh, absolutely. Both of the things that we worked on, the next step is to take our somewhat, sort of quick and dirty code and get that into a productionized format. The efficient computing approach, we want to get that in product very quickly. I think the fluid dynamics approach that I presented, I think is a little bit going to take a lot more work just with more data sets. And I think that'll go through the life cycle, as Matt just said, just working through all the different approaches so that we can go to sort of real clients, get some real data, check that it it's doing what I think it's doing. And then, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to see that in our product in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I guess that's another big reason why having, dev environments that really replicate what happens in production is really important. These isn't throwaway prototypes that you don't do anything with going forwards. You can, take these forwards and actually put them in the world.
Yeah, and I think the work that not just has been done in the supercharged sandbox, but the digital sandbox, the regulatory sandbox, the innovation pathways, the FCA kind of pulls together. You go back and look at what the firms here have done, but you can kind of traverse backwards and look at what some of the previous firms have done. And there are firms who have taken part in the AI Supercharged Sandbox this isn't the first thing they've done with the FCA, and you can go back and look at the ones who have done things with the digital sandbox, and you go on and go, wow, they've done some really, really awesome things commercially and got funding post that. And I think for me, being involved in some of the stuff that the FCA does, even in the small capacity comparatively that I get to be, that's where it gets really exciting, right? You've given them a springboard, but the value that the work that then that generates and the value that generates into these companies, and seeing some of them even create end-to-end products in 3 months as part of this, that's exciting. It's the next step is you've got to commercialize it at some point, but there is a track record of that is very, very possible.
Yeah, I guess back to you. I mean, I joke about that difficult second album vibes, but seems like you nailed it. Good job. What happened last time when I saw this happen here was the sort of ripple of the things that you did here kind of all around the world. Having the pleasure of working in far-flung places, then everybody seems to have emulated the work that has happened. Do you foresee a similar thing happening in this space? I imagine how have you done that, and what's this process like? And I mean, part of leading is sharing in that regard, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We have been having those conversations already with a lot of international regulators. They're constantly asking, okay, how did you do that? And I do remember when I first started speaking to international regulators, very much focused on the Tech Sprint program, the hackathon, so the first album, right? And now we're in the second album. It's like, oh, wow, how did you produce that? And so we still have those conversations. And one of the things I'm always stressing to them is, you've got to have senior leadership sponsorship.
Yeah.
And without that, it's going to be very difficult to get anything off the ground. So I really appreciate that from the FCA and giving us that space to create. But whether, we are seeing that some other regulators internationally are starting to take this approach. They haven't got to the supercharged bit yet. But I think it's coming.
Yeah. It's amazing how much of that is, it's not, can you share a handbook or, the Jedi move you pulled or whatever. It's the sort of people that are involved in it, the sort of culture of how that works, isn't it? It's that's a difficult, some often forgotten and very hard to replicate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is another thing I would stress for any regulator out there, if you're listening. There is something about having an innovation team. It's about having that creativity and being able to test and think outside of the box. And that's something, we had a quick conversation about this before, about how do you make sure you're recruiting the right capabilities in that space. And you, as a regulator, that can be a difficult thing to do.
Sure.
To find that balance of I need somebody who can think about policy and I need somebody who can think creatively. And then bringing that together. And then you start to get these great ideas, and you also understand some of the parameters that you have to work within. So yeah, that's another thing that they would need to take into account.
Yeah, Steve, not easy, but when you get it right, that combination of ingredients can do amazing things. But all right, enough questions for me probably. This is your opportunity from a crowd perspective. If you've got any questions for these guys, make it really difficult. If it's really difficult, then you can make them sweat on stage slightly, that would be quite good. But what do you think? If you've got any questions that you want to turn over, there's a mic walking around.
Yeah, Mike.
Difficult question for Janet. Hearing everything that you've heard over the last 2 days and thinking about our approach to regulation, what do you think about the rules and the framework? We have an approach that we've taken which is very open and conducive to innovation and growth. What's your view on the policy approach?
I mean, for me, I think, as we said at the start of the day, the outcome's the important thing. As long as you get there in a way that's clear and auditable, especially when it comes to AI. That's the key thing. We don't want to have a situation where it's almost the computer says yes or no. We've got to have that clarity. And particularly as someone in the AI space, that level of explanation and audit is clear. But from a regulation point of view, that outcome-based approach is the only sensible way forward. Otherwise, you're going to end up almost over-regulating a wave behind where technology can allow you to go. And particularly from what I see with the people we're trying to detect, they're actively absorbing as much technology as they can get their hands on. So we need to do the same.
Yeah. Bad guys, somewhat innovative, right?
Yeah.
Where is the mic? I know there's one at the back. Who are you and where are you from?
Hi, my name is Denise Frudich. I am CEO of Frudich Advisory and founder of Productopedia. We follow the money so you don't have to help you fight financial crime.
This is not your 7 minutes, by the way.
Thank you. And I'm a huge fan, not only of the FCA's innovation team. This question is for Matt. Matt, one of the biggest challenges is, as you mentioned, is what happens next in terms of embedding solutions, in terms of incubating solutions that have been developed. Is there appetite for the development of something similar to what the Monetary Authority of Singapore has, which is they've set up a regulatory technology grant to effectively help financial institutions embed some of these solutions? Or maybe the next iteration, is there a chance of working with implementation partners? Thank you.
Next question.
Yeah, that's a biggie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say short answer is no for the MAS model. I mean, definitely that jurisdiction works a bit different to how we operate as a financial conduct authority. We look at other avenues to encourage that investment, and a lot of that is within what we're doing today, and making sure that we're using that convening power. Things may change. I'm not in. Well, it's definitely above my pay grade in terms of whether those changes would happen. But we also work quite closely with MAS. So we are doing a lot of work, and this is me on the team, it's more Simran, but working with the MAS in terms of sharing the knowledge and sharing the different ideas and the firms between both jurisdictions. So we're kind of like working together in that space. Now, we're trying to attract some of those over here, and they're probably trying to attract some of the UK over to there. So we are still working with them, and they may receive some of that funding, but at this stage, I'm not going to say any more than that.
Competition is good, though, as the regulator often says, right? Actually,
competition between regulators
raises the bar for everybody, doesn't it? Which is awesome. So,
and that's the whole point of the innovation, right? Like innovation here is explicitly to drive that competition up, and that's a really clever approach.
100%. Yeah. Has anybody got a mic at the moment?
Hi, David. This question is for you. This is Michael Burns, soon to be head of AI at the Eclipse Foundation. We worked on Starling, Monzo, and many other innovative challenger banks in the UK and so on. Do you see a second wave, third wave coming through, which will be much less people, purely AI? Is this propositions that you already see in the market? I'm asking from a German perspective. We're looking at this here as the ones that are doing it before us.
Sure. Do you guys want to have a go at that one, or anybody want to jump in? I'm happy to do it. I mean, there was a face of, no, you take that one. I don't know. I think the sort of decision of like the interface being anything other than a human for at least 1% of that journey, I think is going to be an interesting challenge, because while all of these things are fundamentally, an amazing advancements in the experiences that can be delivered, then really, I think there are always places for people in what that means. So I don't see Monzo or Starling abandoning beautiful interfaces that they've created, or NatWest, Lloyds, or Barclays for that matter. But definitely there'll be an evolution of what those things in terms of where it stands. No, I don't think there's any financial services business in the UK that doesn't use AI in some form. It's just been fun in the back office instead of the interfaces that actually touch customers. So we'll see, but you never know. I've been wrong before. Any other questions? Yep, more hands going up. I was worried nobody's ask anything. Now look at you lot. Go on, sir.
Thank you. Great discussion. Thank you all. I'm Marco. I'm the director of AI at Moneybox, and my question is probably both for Matt and Ollie. Right. First off, I'm a big fan of the FCA's outcome-based approach. Long may it live. But
it did feel like there was a but coming.
There is a but.
Yeah.
There's outcomes that are more easily sort of codified, if you want, right? So, for instance, in the use cases that Janet, you guys presented today, it's a well-established AML financial crime space. We can evaluate it through the existing metrics, right? Now, I've seen some things yesterday and today that I raised my eyebrows and I thought were way beyond the regulatory boundary. So maybe I'm too conservative, right? But obviously, what's been put out there is now a signal to the market. Should we take it as a signal of that's kind of where we can play? Or how should we be thinking about some of the more consumer-facing stuff, let's say?
It's a good question. I'll take this one, Ollie.
Yeah, go for it.
But just to be really clear, like what you've seen over the last 2 days is that early stage innovation. So yeah, you might be testing the boundaries of regulatory comfort, but they're not in production yet. So that's when they start to go through our other services. So if you start going through innovation pathways, you're starting to navigate the regulator, and then there's going to be you might need to think about setting it around these parameters instead. And same with the reg sandbox world. So the idea of being in that early stage innovation is to go large, and maybe you push the boundaries a bit, and then we'll start to make sure we refine that if they go through those processes.
I think that's a really interesting point, because actually, if you think instruments are often regulated individually, and actually often what AI can do is traverse those things to create interesting services, and actually it can then cut across lots of different regulation in lots of different ways. But it's kind of part of the point, I guess, isn't it? Is where are those boundaries? And this is why you test in a sandbox, because you can play with it, you can evolve it, and then actually that can inform future things as well. So more for more, sir.
Hi, my name is Thomas Högnan from Thailand Solutions. I have a question to Matt, actually. On which stage do I have to be as a founder to be part of the sandbox? So can I build the minimum viable product with you guys, or do I have to be a bit further on my journey here?
Do you mean to stand here on this stage? And are you saying to get access to the Supercharged Sandbox to develop your product and then get it out there?
So I'm on concept phase at the moment, but do I have to be already a product or something to demonstrate?
So to be accepted into the sandbox,
exactly,
at what point?
Yeah.
Can it be white paper or near production?
Yeah. I mean, we have seen applications that sort of vary. We saw some very much early stage, whiteboarding, yes, and we would still look at those and we still consider them, because part of the idea is that we're giving you access to the data and the infrastructure that you might not necessarily have. So conceptually, absolutely, if that's where you're at and that's where your head is at, then I would apply. We did actually see some other solutions that were far more developed, and they didn't necessarily come into us. We were like, well, you've already got data, you've already got infrastructure. What do you need a testing environment that we've built? And that's where we would consider putting them into AI live testing. So they've already done something, they've built something, or so how do they get some of that, that regulatory comfort around their models? So we would still signpost it to other areas depending on where you are in that journey. But if you're at early concept stage, that's what a Supercharged Sandbox is for.
All right, we've probably got time for one more. Gentleman in the middle.
Yes.
Just increasingly making it difficult for you to get mics to, mate. Sorry.
Thank you. I won't take time to congratulate FCA on a wonderful job done. My question is for Janet. Obviously there were those who are more early stages companies who probably can focus completely here. But for someone like you, who also is continuously running your own projects at your company, and to still dedicate this kind of concentrated time here, how did you manage that?
Personally, with difficulty. It was very easy for me to carve out time for my team and manage projects around them. But as a team leader, all the meetings that I've been on, I found that it became evenings, early hours of the morning thing for me personally, which is not ideal. But I think going back to what I said earlier about really preparing for the amount of time, I think I would have probably removed myself from it, just knowing that I wouldn't have the time, although it was my idea. I really wanted to try, so I couldn't do it. But it was difficult. So I think anyone looking at this needs to really consider how much time they can donate of their teams and their resources, because to do it well, you really do have to put the time in. And I would suggest sleep is important as well.
If we've learned nothing, sleep is important, everybody. That's good. All right, we don't have any time for any more, I'm afraid. I'm sure you have more questions. I'm sure these guys will be mingling upstairs later on, so feel free to come up and throw your question at them in person. Sorry, guys, I just volunteered you for that one. But we are going to have to wrap up today's discussion, though, and a massive thank you to all of the panelists for breaking this down. Super important topic, and it sounds like real amazing developments that have happened over the space of, Christmas and the months that go before that. But thank you so much for joining me. Where can people learn a little bit more about you and all the good stuff that you're doing? Janet, let's start with you.
So there's the Napier.ai website. It's very easy to find, but I'm also very easy to find on LinkedIn. I believe I am the only Janet Bastiman in the world, so you should be able to find me very easily.
That's a bold claim right there. I'm going to Google it later. Ollie, where can people find more about you?
Yeah, so either NayaOne.com for the company, and then for myself, Ollie Platt on LinkedIn, but spelled OLI. So it's a little bit easier to find me, but not that easy.
Very good. Matt, where can people learn more?
FCA AI-LAB. Let's go. FCA AI Lab.
And what about you personally?
Oh, personally,
I'm imagining you're going to start getting DMs on LinkedIn's of next time's applications.
Already happening. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, and that's probably the best place to find me, actually.
Very good. As for me, lurking on LinkedIn most of the time these days, so feel free to reach out. If you like what you heard, then please follow the podcast and make it your favorite platform. Wherever you get your podcasts, you'll find us there. If you want to join the conversation, you can find us on pretty much every social media channel at this stage. Just search for 11FS or Fintech Insider. If you really want to, and we do get emails, it's weird, email us at podcasts@11fs.com. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Goodbye.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.